I can still say that the repercussions for speaking here are way higher than the repercussions of speaking in my country.
You know, if a white person says an N-word, people are just like, oh, that's bad, we're going to cancel you, but then you can bounce back, you can come back. And there was a case of this white woman. She called this like 9-year-old boy the N-word. She gets fired from her job, and then a bunch of people raise up like $100,000 for her.
Like, how far would you go to defend what you say?
There is two aspects to free speech. There is the government authorized free speech, and then there is the society code, as you were talking about, societal code as to what free speech can be accepted by that society.
Yeah.
And I think that
I just heard your house analogy, and I was thinking I'm sort of a weird situation because you were saying like you're in someone else's invited house, but in my case, I'm American on my dad's side, but I lived my first 18 years in Panama. So I get to see basically like a divorced parent. I get to be myself in the US technically without repercussions, and I get to be myself in Panama without repercussions. I have to say that even on top of, let's say I have all the rights of a citizen of the US, I can still say that the repercussions for speaking here are way higher than the repercussions of speaking in my country in anything, like things as small as social things. Like just to give you an example to know what I mean, like my brothers all look differently. Like for me, because I was even a lot heavier back then, it is very normal in the street for someone, when they call my attention, they go like, hey, gordo, which means like yo, fat guy. Like, and for me, that's not an offensive thing because they're just describing me. Or my younger brother is a lot darker than me because of how he looks. And it's a normal thing that everyone calls him like, hey, negrito, which means like a dark kid. Yeah. But for him, that's a normal thing. And in Panama, that's a normal thing because they're just describing you. Or stores are called chinitos that are owned by any sort of Asian person. And they're not insulting this person. They're just like describing the business, which might seem weird and might seem offensive here. But I do feel like language here in general, even as a person who has all the rights of a US citizen, is a lot harder to monitor.
So you find yourself similarly monitoring yourself.
Yeah.
With the things that you say.
Even without the consequences of not being a citizen.
Yeah. Even though it doesn't matter. But you still get canceled. You still have all these other issues.
I think the First Amendment has a double standard for sure. And especially when it comes to like racism. With the Charlie Kirk thing, like people are getting, arrested or they're getting fired from their jobs. But like, if a white person says an N-word, people are just like, oh, that's bad, we're going to cancel you, but then you can bounce back, you can come back. And there was a case of this white woman. She called this like 9-year-old boy the N-word. She gets fired from her job, and then a bunch of people raise up like $100,000 for her. Like, I feel like, okay, people are like, oh, anybody can say the N-word, and me as a black person. And I know that's like, in like the black community, like everybody thinks differently, but like me, personally, people shouldn't just be saying the N-word like that, especially if you're not black. They're like, okay, we're oppressed too, we can say what we want. Like, it's not violated under the First Amendment, but these certain words hurt communities. And even if like you're not saying the N-word in a racist way, I personally take like, if you're saying the N-word in a more casual way, I take it more offensively than if you're like saying it in a more derogatory way towards me. Like if you're using it racistly, I'm gonna laugh at you because you sound stupid and dumb. But if you're just like, oh, what's up, oh, okay, no, you can't do that.
So for you, some of the free speech, the containment on free speech, really, because that's what we're talking about here. Because it's pretty widely known. Like, hey, there's certain words, certain things you don't say, right? People say them anyway because for whatever reason, but most people don't. Most people don't. It's just like on airplanes, people that have air rage. There's a lot less air rage than it would seem if you're watching videos on social media. But for you, there's like a kind of a containment. Actually, yeah, well, it really does bother a lot of people when people are randomly throwing around the N-bomb. So it's like, don't say it. So it's not inherently a problem. So even though the law is going to protect you for that, it's like it still is. It's like, don't do it. It's
bad.
And so you would say, so Cody, you started talking about values, and kind of one value, probably I would guess that you have, is that you don't want to impinge on somebody else's sense of self and comfort in who they are. So like you wouldn't.
Absolutely not. I think that.
So you're not going to push something. I can say the N word because I can and I should be able to. You're not going to do that because it's like it doesn't go with your values.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I got that. The vast majority of white people who drop the N-bomb in some like really kind of serious way, like they're in some kind of altercation or whatever, it really wreaks havoc on their lives, man. That one particular woman, she became a cause célèbre in the whatever, some kind of deeply conservative, some community, I don't know what, and they did a GoFundMe for her and raised a bunch of money. But yeah, the vast majority, it's like, nah, you don't want to do that.
And my concern that it's going to just become normalized. Like, so I'm from Houston, and Houston, if you guys don't know, it's very diverse. And in my class, I was in welding in high school, and I was like the only black person in there. And I went to a really, like, there was a bunch of black people at my school, but I was the only black person and one of 3, women in that class. And everybody was throwing around the N-word, like, and when people ask like younger generations, oh, what's slang? What's slang? They're like, the N-word's so funny. It's so funny. It's so funny. And I don't know, it's like them hearing other people and they're just like trying to like emulate them. They're like, oh yeah, that is funny. That is funny. But it's not.
Yeah.
And they think it's okay. Well, it's not that bad. It doesn't bother them anymore. I'm going to give you the N-word pass, or, it's free speech. We can say whatever we want. Or, and we see these things, it gets so normalized, and I'm afraid that the meaning of the word is going to get like taken away.
Yeah, I got you. No, thanks for that. I appreciate that. I think probably not. I think we're seeing a certain movement in some directions, but I actually think that it won't be normalized, and I think we're just seeing a certain. But I don't know why young people do that, man. You're young. You're better able to explain why your classmates would think that was okay than I ever would. So I think young people are going to push.
And I just want to talk about like the idea of is almost like defending, like how far would you go to defend what you say? And like growing up with social media, it was always like whatever you post, you have to be able to defend. And like both my parents were being like not monitored, but like they could have had repercussions from what I said on social media. So it's just like the idea of like, how far are you going to go to defend what you're saying? And
wait,
I feel like.
So because your parents, this is true for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
That your parents, if you step out of line, it could come back to your parents, okay? Mm-hmm. So that meant from a very young age, you were being taught by them, like, hey, listen, man, here are the guardrails as you go through life. And how was that for you to grow up with with guardrails?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like it was kind of a good thing. Like I was able to learn really the effects of like what you say for others. I mean, like I was able to see it from not just my own perspective, but from their perspective, and like how words can hurt people in ways that you might not even like, especially when you're like 13 years old, like you're not thinking about the way your words could impact other people.
What do you think? Like she's saying basically, hey, for me, it was really a good thing to have these guardrails and my parents telling me you can't step outside of these because it will have repercussions.
Like having your parents kind of guide you through, but then once you get to like college and like towards the end of high school, it should be like, not it should be, but you should be able to protect your values, but also be open to like other things. Like you don't want to be like too like closed off.
A buddy of mine sent me a couple comments from a video that we posted, a couple comments about me. And it's just, I'm like, come on, man, it's so mean. Like, what the? You don't have to be that mean. It's so mean, right? Yeah. And it was like on Instagram. Instagram comments are the worst, by the way. I don't read them. If someone doesn't send me comments, I'm not going to read them. But it was just mean, and I thought. There's no need for that. And we know in the world that mean comments, angry comments are what gets other people to respond. And so these social media platforms are geared toward promoting any kind of negative or angry comment, because that will get you all to keep clicking. And the more you click, the more money they make. So it's like you've grown up in this world where meanness is rewarded.
I just had like a comment to make about like kind of overall what we're talking about. And I think it's important to note that there is two aspects to free speech. There is the government authorized free speech, and then there is this like society code, as you were talking about, societal code as to what free speech can be accepted by that society. Yeah. And I think that in order for a society to function in a more fluid and capable way, it's important that the society mandated code is stricter than the government mandated code, because the second that the government mandated code starts to overlap with the intensity of the society mandated code, we start to see an infringement of people's rights and their capabilities of promoting change in the world. You know, if the second that you as a government start trying to infringe on a higher level the standards of the society mandated code, that's whenever we start to lose free speech. And I think that's why so many people are scared to talk, because because of that fear that the government mandated code is becoming too similar to the society mandate.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. When you guys say freedom of speech, like, what do you mean?
I guess I would just say you're allowed to have the opinions you want. You're allowed to spread that opinion and that ideology that you feel is right. If people disagree with you, then they also have a right to disagree with you and say what they think is right in their ideologies as well. Just in general, I mean, basically from the First Amendment, it's just freedom of speech, religion, freedom of the press, and
including misinformation. You can spread
and the freedom of misinformation. That's right.
Which is a bit of a problem here, I will say, as someone who I do think that misinformation can be very problematic. Is what she said? Would you go with what she said?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And sorry, on that misinformation thing, I think it also ties into what you were saying about our code as like a society. Like, we agree that it's wrong to say slurs, so we don't. And that the government doesn't say that, the First Amendment doesn't say that, but it's written in our modern code. So I feel like that also applies to misinformation. And that's why I like what I guess Twitter and I think TikTok is doing. They're saying like, hey, like this may be misinformation or this may be marked as incorrect. So as long as institutions are making people aware of it, then.
So for you, from your perspective, maybe that's like the best we can do.
Yeah.
Even though somebody has to decide what's misinformation, but it's like, well, I don't know, then you decide whether you want to accept that somebody else thinks that's misinformation. Jackie says, why don't most people talk about how free speech isn't absolute? It's not absolute. It's like, it's not ever, you can't just say anything you want to say. And also, speech constitutes actions. Speech leads to actions. Speech is an action. And so it's like, hey, you got to be careful about certain things. Jackie, the question is, because we don't talk about speech enough, that's why we don't talk about that. Are the risks of restricting free speech greater than the freedom itself? Can I ask you that question? What are the risks of restricting free speech?
Yes, in a way, because with freedom of speech, we got our transformational leaders of, the world. We have the Gandhis, the Malalas, all the great leaders, the Martin Luther King Jr., like everyone has gone, and most of the time they're using their freedom of speech, and most of the time it's against the government, and they're using that to fight for their cause, fight for what they think is right. So if we restrict that, we wouldn't have had those leaders. We wouldn't have those people that shaped our society today.
Okay. Yeah. Julie says, what's the difference when the speech is happening on social media or in person?
Kind of leave like a digital footprint on social media.
Yeah.
It's just, it's there. Whereas you say it in person, sometimes it might, shoot over people's head or they might forget about it. But when you say it,
if it's not recorded.
Yeah, if it's not recorded, and also if you're in person, then you can guide people to the way that you interpret it.
Yeah,
whereas social media, they have to interpret it their own way.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's what happens all the time. People just interpret some way that they want.